Welcome everybody. Welcome to the season 2 of Pipeline Pioneers, where our goal, our objective is to learn from the experts, from the practitioners as to how to build the most optimal pipeline for your business. As we know, pipeline is the heart and blood of any organization, and it truly takes a village to build a pipeline. You can't just give it to the sales team, marketing, or PDRs. You all have to come together to build the pipeline. Today, I am excited to have Randi with me. Randi, welcome to the pod.
Thank you so much again for having me. I'm so excited to be a second guest.
That's right, second season. Thank you so much. You know, we would love to compare your first season's investments, how they pan out, and see how you make your investment in season 2. So, why don't you give a refresher to our audience as to, what's your role, about your business, and how in your role do you help influence the pipeline for your business?
Yeah, so I'm currently SVP of Growth at BESLER. And I think what the audience needs to know about me is I'm a former scientist turned go-to-market leader. And the reason I share that is that I'm absolutely obsessed with data and refining and iterating. And that's what we do in go-to-market, right? We look at data, we have a hypothesis, and we test, refine, and iterate. And I have been very fortunate in my past 15 years to be at companies where we were a bit bootstrapped. And so I had to do this without a lot of money. And so creating predictable pipelines so you can have predictable revenue with not a lot of money. We're in this profitable, efficient growth phase. I'm like, oh, I was made for this, because all along I have been at companies where we've been bootstrapped and didn't actually have a lot of money. So this is not a new thing for me. And so this is kind of fun talking to my peers on how they're thinking. I'm able to add a lot of value.
Yeah, no, this is great. As they say, scientists and engineers, I'm biased because being an engineer, they make the best go-to-market professionals. So it's playing out right in front of us. So Randy, speaking of data, ICP, the ideal customer profile, is such a critical exercise for the companies to do. Many times, CROs, CMOs, they either don't do it or they don't do it well. Have your take on ICP? How do you define the ICP for your business? And when do you define? The beginning of the year? How often do you iterate on your ICP? So let's unpack that for the audience.
Sure. So I've been in enterprise sales my whole career. So I'm sharing from an enterprise lens. And to your point about engineers, scientists, it's this system level thinking and really having good processes. And ICP is a foundation of the go-to-market. You cannot have a good strategy without foundations. If you think about the bricks in a house, right? Like if you're missing bricks, what's going to happen? You're going to have huge cracks. And I think a lot of people make a mistake. They either don't take the time to really define the ICP, and then they're all over the place, and then they're dealing with, they don't have efficient resource allocation, or they're bringing on the wrong customers, and that's showing up in churn.
Yep.
And they don't have customer lifetime value. They don't see any deal acceleration. Those are all flags like, oh, you might be going after the wrong ICP. And this is not a one and done. And this is just like I shared a little bit earlier. This is something you are continually refining and iterating. And what I have found in enterprise, it's always been the case that we've had like a buyer committee. But what we have found in our business, and I'm in healthcare tech, is that I really need to have not just the ICP dial in, but who's the whole buying committee, and looking at each of those personas, what's important to them, to make sure, because I can have as many as 20 to 30 people on my buying committee. It's insane. Make sure that I have all of those dialed in. So I'm messaging all those different people what they need to hear to ensure that deal progresses.
That's great. How often do you refine? Do you look back at the close one from 3 months, 6 months, the whole year?
I refine quarterly. And the reason I do this, I think you need to be focused and disciplined. You look at not just your close won, but your closed lost as well. You can learn just as much from what you won as what you lost and why, maybe what you didn't do well in that, so you can adjust. And I think that operators who are looking at it consistently, and obviously you have to have enough in your pipeline to review on a quarterly basis. We do, otherwise it would be biannually. But if you have that rigor and discipline of looking at it, and sometimes it's small tweaks, sometimes it's bigger tweaks, right? But this is not a one-time thing. This is something that you do on a regular basis. The cadence, once again, depends on how much pipe you have. If you don't have enough data, once again, you don't want to make a decision if you don't have a huge data collection. So you need enough pipe. For us, I can definitely do that quarterly.
That's awesome. That's great. So AI, we are all hearing about AI. We obviously play with the chat GPTs of the world and Groks of the world. What are you seeing in terms of AI when it comes to pipeline generation? Like, what phases of pipeline generation do you think are ripe AI to disrupt?
Right. So I think it depends on your industry. Once again, being in healthcare, we're a little laggard, and there's a little bit of sensitivity because of cybersecurity and privacy concerns. But having said that, I think that, AI is right to help speed along, messaging, buyer intent, the personalization, the research, so all that front end stuff. We all know B2B buyers are coming in later because they've, spent 50 to 75% of their time talking to peers, looking at papers, looking at G2, et cetera, before they typically engage with a company. So that's where I feel like we need to do a really good job with AI. Like I said, from that buyer intent, personalization, et cetera, research, to make sure that when they do engage, we're like laser focused and we're really using our people to accelerate the deal, because like I said, they've already come to us with all this background information. We either need to level set, guide, all the things. I will say, what I have seen though is garbage in, garbage out. And what I mean by that is, if you have a crappy process, AI is going to amplify that. So if you haven't done good things with your foundation, I don't care whether it's, your persona research, et cetera, AI will not help a crappy process. It will amplify it, and it's gonna show up. So if you have, frontline managers, et cetera, who don't have a good process, aren't good at coaching, all those things, it's gonna show up. And it's gonna show up in not the way you want.
we say, data is core of our business, and we provide pipeline generation platform. It all depends upon the good data. There's no AI in the world that's going to help you.
No, not going to fix it.
Solve the problem if the underlying data is not good.
Yeah, 100%. And that's also why, as a leader, whenever we set up our systems, I truly want to understand, when I see a report, where is the data coming from? And once again, that's back to my scientific brain. Sorry for repeating myself, but I think as a leader, I need to understand where that data comes from and how can I ensure that I can trust it, right? Because I'm making decisions off of it. And so, like I said, having a good handle on where that raw data comes from is super important. And obviously, you have teams, RevOps, et cetera, that are helping create those reports. But I, as a leader, need to trust it, and so I need to understand that myself.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so you got your AI dialed in, you got your ICP dialed in. Let's play an interactive game here. So we all have limited budgets, right? 2 years, new budgets, and we are tasked with a simple goal, which is to generate the pipeline, right? And as we know, the pipeline generation, just like it's a team sport, it's a multi-channel sport where you need to make investments, across different channels. You have 100 pennies, how will you invest these 100 pennies across these channels to make sure that your team has the most optimal pipeline to generate, hit the number?
Yeah, for us, it's 20 in community, partnerships, customer, and events, 10 in brand, and then 10 in other, and that's more for AI and tech. The reason why I don't have any in marketing per se is marketing is behind the things that are driving customer referrals, events in the community, right? Like it's in there, but it's not a direct attribution, if that makes sense.
I see. So you have 10 in the others, which is the AI experimentation, right? And where else did you say the other 10%?
I said 10 in brand.
10 in brand, okay.
Yeah. And for us, what we have found is the more like referrals are gold, and we're driving peer-to-peer referrals, we're driving direct customer referrals, we're driving partnership referrals. Yep. And that's why I said like all of this does require marketing, so there's that indirect attribution. But referrals for us are a huge revenue unlock, and we're seeing shorter sales cycle, larger deals, and especially on the peer-to-peer referrals, those go even quicker.
Yeah. Where would you put that? Is it referral a partnership, or referral is mostly your
It's across. It's across, and this is where it's a huge unlock. I really hate the term force multiplier, but I'm going to use it because we have referrals within our community, within partnerships, within, directly from a customer, and then from events. Like we hold thought leadership events. We have, in-person events where once again, we get this peer-to-peer interaction happen. And as an example, we just hosted an event last month, and out of that 10 demos, some are already in contract stage. As I said, increased or decreased the sales cycle. And like I said, it just happens because there's that trust between two peers. And if I can make that happen, and that happens in community and events, like I said, we just see those deals accelerate.
That's great. Well, because I don't have a referral bucket here, I'm going to put it in others. Right?
Other, okay,
right?
Yes, yeah. And like I said, it's across multiple, right? But I just wanted to speak to them, like the thought process behind it for us, and what we've seen work. And what was different from last year is, we did invest in community. I think I had 10 pennies, but what we noticed is that we should have probably done more in community because of that peer-to-peer referral, not just in events, but in that community. That's another place for that to happen.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Perfect. Well, let's take a look. All right, so let's take a look here. So this is the industry benchmark. Your peers are investing their 100 pennies here. I'm going to overlay your investments here. When you look at this chart, Randy, what surprises you?
So, obviously in enterprise, we're really not doing PLG motion. So that doesn't surprise me. Depending on your motion, you might be PLG. And like I said, the referrals, it takes sales and marketing. So like I said, there's that indirect attribution. So once again, not surprising. I'm actually kind of happy to see founder-led, especially for startups. Once again, it takes a village, right? And so having your executives involved is super, super helpful. Social led, once again, depending where your ICP hangs out, that can be a great channel, for us. My CFOs of hospitals are what I would call lurkers. They don't really comment and engage. So that's why we didn't put on that. But like, once again, you need to know your business so you can define which are the best channels.
Yeah, this was awesome. Well, Randy, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, I really appreciate the opportunity to be a second time guest. It was really good to actually go back and compare and just think about what we changed over the years. So once again, thank you so much for the opportunity just to share expertise, point of view. And I love listening to everyone because depending on the industry and whether it's enterprise, SMB, et cetera, it does make a difference, right? Or where your ICP hangs out.
Exactly.